I love sous vide cooking, but its days are numbered. Because I figured out a way that you can cook sous vide without having to buy a sous vide machine. And it's not going to cost you anything. A couple of years ago, the sous vide trend became a household trick to cook meat to perfection. With professional level accuracy equipment available in your kitchen. Every steak aficionado had a sous vide machine in their kitchen and was cooking steaks to perfection. And then chefs like Joshua Weissman and Guga Foods took it to the next level and started cooking beef short ribs for 48 to 72 hours. Creating the perfect short rib. All you needed was an insulated water bath, one of those sous vide sticks, a vacuum machine, and lots of vacuum bags. And to explain this hack, I'll be first cooking these beautiful chuck steaks on the barbecue. Last week I did a video on 3 cuts of beef that could replace brisket under $30, and one of the options was the beef shoulder clod. And in the shoulder clod there's the chuck roast. And of course, good value for money, I cut out these beautiful chuck steaks and saved them for another time, which is right now, and that's why I have these beautiful steaks. You can season these with your favorite barbecue seasoning. I'll be using the PitmasterX beef seasoning, of course. Time to fire up the PitmasterX smoker and start smoking these beautiful chuck steaks. First I'm gonna switch it on, set the temperature to 120 degrees Celsius, and then do a quick check on the Beechwood smoke chips. Make sure the bottom vent is open, top vent is open, slide in the chuck steaks, and then all there's left to do is just hit the smoke button. Now of course I can do all of this from the app, that's an option, but I'm just going manual today. I set the PitmasterX to 3 hours of smoking because I think that's how long it's going to take to get the smoke flavor onto the chuck steaks. And then I'll get to the trick, promise. I let it run a little longer than 3 hours. Well, I did the smoking for 3 hours, but then I just let it sit there and the fat was dripping down onto the tray and it was twirling up. And now I have a beautiful dark crust on my chuck steaks. And this is the temperature normally where I would wrap them up and continue to cook them, or I would raise up the temperature and get them completely finished off. But we're doing that today because I'm going to show you why you will never ever need sous vide ever again.
Oh wow.
First I'm going to need to lower the temperature. I'm going to need to go down to 65 degrees Celsius. For the next step I need to take the chuck steaks off the barbecue. Wow, that crust is insane. Looks so good. I'm going to leave the door of the barbecue open, which is important because now comes the trick. Because of course sous vide cooking is all about cooking things at a low temperature. You can cook a steak and just set the sous vide machine to 54 degrees Celsius and just put the steak in and just wait for 4 hours, and that steak will be the perfect temperature. You can eat it. Or you can leave it in for a very long time, let's say a whole day, I don't know, 24 hours. And then the steak is going to be extremely soft because at that temperature the steak is still cooking and disintegrating while it's not going over its maximum temperature. And that, my friends, that is what sous vide cooking is about. So what I do is I take my chuck steak, put it on a little bit of foil, and because during the cook I expelled some of the moisture that was in the chuck steak, I'm going to replace that with a little bit of beef tallow. Just going to put on a slice and then I'm going to wrap this up. And I'm not talking about just wrapping it up, I'm talking about sealing it in. And this is just ordinary foil that you have in your kitchen drawer, or if you don't have it, you can get it at your supermarket. This is available everywhere in the world. And it's basically going to be your replacement for the plastic bag that people use for sous vide cooking. And this is now waterproof, airtight, packed. Of course, I'm going to do the same thing for the other chuck steak. Look at that, what a beauty. Wrap that up. I'm using the PitmasterX smoker, and this smoker has a unique feature where you can super control the temperature. It is basically locked in, dialed in, absolutely perfect. So I'm just gonna be able to put these in, set the temperature to 60 degrees Celsius, which is about 40 degrees below where the plastic would melt, and it is just going to be fine. And it's going to be cooking at that 60 degrees Celsius. And that means I don't have to worry about it. But it's still cooking and it's still turning softer and softer. And I'm going to give it actually 48 hours. At least one is going to get 48 hours. And then we're going to be checking back, and that's a long time, I know. But the PitmasterX has no trouble with that. And if you don't have a PitmasterX and you still smoke that chuck steak, just go to your oven. set your oven to that temperature and just wrap it up. Put it in your oven. I do realize that waiting for 48 hours it's a tall order. You could have just eaten the chuck steak. I know, but it's like if you have patience for sous vide, you're gonna have patience for this. We're at the 48-hour mark. Now it's time to take a look at the first chuck steak that we put in. And it's kind of extreme, this thing that we're doing. And the fun part is that you can just grab it. It's hot, but it's not burning hot. It's not scorching hot. Oh, squeezing it. You see the juices there and there? A ballet of moisture inside this package. I can't wait any longer. I need to open this package up and take a look inside. Is this chuck steak already super tender after 48 hours of, well, basically a fake sous vide or an improved version of sous vide? One thing that I can say is that it is extremely juicy and tender. Look at that moisture that sits inside this package. Of course I'm not gonna let that go to waste. That's gonna go on top of this. Let's just slice into this and take a look. Oh, that is soft and tender. The knife almost fell through by touching it. Ooh. This is a sharp knife, but look at it. And it's stuck to the knife edge. And all these little parts, it means this must be full apart tender. Yeah, I gotta be really careful. This is 48 hours. We do still have structure. I think we did it, guys. I think this is the end of sous vide. There's no need anymore for sous vide. Look at that. See how that structure, I'm just gonna open it up a little bit, but see how that structure is, the pores are open. Like, you see that? The fat rendered out. It's not falling apart, but it's super, super soft. We still got the bark. Look at that. Did we just make sous vide obsolete? Is this the proof that you will never ever have to buy a sous vide machine again? That is crazy tender. That is already way more tender than regular barbecue. There's still structure there in the individual fiber, but it's not like when you have ribs, you want a little bite. I think people are gonna love this. Oh, the fat, the way the fat rendered out. I have here again a little bit of fat and a little bit of tendon. Normally that's not the best part to eat. It's so soft. This is really, I don't know, man. This is really something else. This is like sous vide. This is exactly like sous vide. This is only 48 hours. We're gonna go all the way up to 72 hours, and then we'll see what happens to this chuck steak. Is it gonna be even better? But I think this is already crazy. The Bordiac has been running for 72 hours straight, and I didn't have to do anything. That's kind of amazing. That's why I love this barbecue. Super simple to operate. It takes the work out of barbecue. But the more important thing we need to talk about is, ooh, this package. You see, this right here, this might change everything. I know the 48 hours was really a big surprise. And this can actually go two ways. Either it's gonna go really good and it's gonna be even better than the 48 hours. Yeah, or it's gonna be bad and it's gonna be way overdone and it's gonna be like one big goo. But the only way to find out is to open it up. Wow, look at how gentle that is. Look at it. This is a solid piece of muscle, so let's see what happens if we, oh yeah. Let's just squeeze it. It is fall apart tender. This is even more tender. This is easily more tender than the 48 hours. Even if I could use a fork then, it didn't fall apart when I squeezed it. Now it's definitely falling apart when I'm squeezing it. Look at that. This is definitely proof that you never ever have to buy a sous vide machine if you got the proper barbecue. Look at that. If you try and break the fibers in half, it just tears up. Huh? Oh. Oh. Wow. I was too worried that it's going to be soft. If you have this amount of time that you're cooking and you're thinking about it this amount of time, you have a lot of time to think about it. And most of that time you're thinking, what if I made the wrong choice? What if everything goes wrong? Time is not your friend, time is your enemy. And you have to stomach the chances that everything goes wrong. But this time, it really paid off to wait. Wow. We're running on 65 degrees Celsius for 72 hours. That's the sweet spot. Now in my house, it would be a little bit of a problem running the oven for such a long time because my wife would probably say, hey, can you do that somewhere else? And then you're thinking, well, I might get an oven like a second-hand oven and put it in the shed. But if you're doing that, you might as well get a barbecue that does that and does a lot more than that. But in the end, it doesn't matter how you fix it. All you need to do is keep in mind that if you can run 65 degrees Celsius for 72 hours, you got the best juicy tender barbecue you've ever seen. And you don't need any skills and you don't need to invest in all of that equipment that you otherwise would spend on sous vide machine. Awesome. Awesome is the right word. See you guys in the next video. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on grilling.